which is entitled Protecting People and Planet. Will ADB's new environmental and social framework live up to its promises? This session is convened by the NGO Forum on ADB, and I'll be your moderator. I'm Tanya Roberts-Davis, the Just Transitions Advocacy Coordinator with the NGO Forum on ADB. So just to give a bit of background context, this panel is taking place, as many of you know, in the midst of the later stages of the process of the revising and updating of the ADB's current safeguards policy, which the previous one was adopted back in 2009. So to advocate and to be advancing a robust set of safeguards which would hold both the ADB and those receiving financing from the ADB accountable to binding international environmental and human rights standards, and be forward-looking in consideration of the health and well-being of future generations, as well as our planetary commons. Civil society groups, communities affected by ADB's past and present projects, indigenous people's rights defenders, trade unionists, amongst others, have been engaged over the past 2 years in good faith, discussing and being consulted on these safeguards. So today, you will be hearing from a range of perspectives about the current still open wounds of harm and damages that have been left by projects that have been financed by the ADB under the 2009 safeguard standards, which shows precisely why we need language that does not open the door to flexible application that might bend the rules even further, taking advantage of marginalized populations and creating more sacrifice zones. And instead, that the bar is raised for commitments to international norms as a floor, not as a ceiling. So without further ado, let me introduce our panel. First, we are honored to have with us Ambassador Chantal Wong, who is the current ADB Executive Director representing the USA. She'll give us some opening remarks, and following her, we'll go to our panelists. And first off, just to give you the rundown, we'll have Ryan Hassan, Executive Director of the NGO Forum on ADB, who will give us an overview about the architecture of the safeguard of the new ESF policy that is being drafted, and our key critical concerns on this draft, and why civil society groups across the region are currently calling for a rewrite of that draft. After that, you'll hear from Indira Shrish, who is the founder and chairperson of the Indigenous Women's Legal Awareness Group from Nepal, who will give us some reflections on the ADB's financing of the Tanahu hydropower project from the perspective of affected Indigenous people. After that, you'll hear from Dewi Pushpa, who is representing Solidaritas Perempuan in Indonesia, about the implications of ADB's financing of geothermal drilling and expansion in Indonesia, especially in relation to the women's livelihoods. After that, we'll take a short break and then move on to our next two panelists, who you see here. Jitan Yuna from the Center for Research and Advocacy in Manipur, Northeast India, who will talk a bit about some of the infrastructure projects that are already in violation of the 2009 safeguard policy. And then Hassan Mahdi, Chief Executive Director of the Coastal Livelihood and Environmental Action Network in Bangladesh, who will talk about the spillover impacts that have been wrought by ADB's current fossil fuel and other projects in Bangladesh. And following that, we'll then have some closing remarks and reflections, reactions, and questions. So as you can see, hopefully up on the screen, we can show in terms of questions, we'll be taking questions both from the floor and from Pigeonhole. Pigeonhole, is it possible to just put up on the screen the Pigeonhole, yes, that application, where you can type in your questions, and that if you want to go to that website, as you can see up there, it's www.pigeonhole.org. AT, and the code is Tbilisi 2024. So now, moving over to Ambassador Long for the introductory remarks.
Thank you very much, Maya. Thank you to Ryan and the NGO Forum for inviting me to speak in this really important panel here. I know it's the last panel, so I hope that we're all going to keep your interest here. Adopting a really strong environmental and social framework, the ESF, is really critical to achieving ADB's goal for a prosperous, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable Asia and the Pacific. The theory and practice of development really demonstrates that implementing a strong environmental and social safeguards policy really contributes to strong development outcomes, and we strongly believe that. So for decades, the United States has led the charge for greater accountability and transparency at the multilateral institutions. And that was the case actually when I was at the ADB 25 years ago, as it is true today, that the U.S. placed a key interest in safeguards and how we implement them in various institutions, all of the multilateral institutions, of which we are a major shareholder here, including the ADB. As part of these efforts, we've really pushed for stronger environmental and social safeguards to avoid and to minimize and mitigate negative impacts from our landing. So we'll be very interested to hear where some of our failings have been and how can we make better safeguards going forward. While I would say ADB has been a leader in establishing environmental and social safeguards in Asia, it should now set a new standard. Since 2009, the last ADB safeguards was put into policy. We should be setting a new set for the region. The draft ESF has really several positive elements that contributes to that goal. In particular, I actually really want to note some improved policies on a range of social issues, such as for disadvantaged and vulnerable groups, sexual exploitation, abuse and harassment, and reprisals, and new standards on labor and community health, safety, and cultural heritage. Importantly, for all projects, there is a new standard for stakeholder engagement, and this is pretty much very important to us, and which we hope that will contribute to a more substantial improvement in project consultations and meaningful consultations. That's what we are looking for, right? At the same time, we think that there are several areas where we think the draft ESF can be strengthened, such as adequate time for public disclosure of environment and social impact assessments of high-risk projects, application of policy across different financing modalities, financial intermediaries, for example, and enhance supply chain custody of supply, due diligence, particularly in solar and other high-risk sectors. This has been an area that we have been very much focused on in our suite. So in the United States, including the Office of the Executive Director, which I head, and by the way, we have with me here one of my advisors, Matt Sullivan, who's been really doing yeoman's work around this safeguards policy, and a range of other U.S. agencies that have engaged extensively. I know that our team has been very much engaged with ADB management and staff, as well as CSOs on the safeguards. For example, our Labor Department, U.S. Labor Department, has been very engaged since 2020, since the beginning of the safeguards policy review. The inputs we have received from the CSOs, by the way, including the NGO Forum at the ADB, has been critical to our ability to advocate for a stronger ESF. Of course, policy is only as good as the paper is written on, and so the ADB's upcoming review of the accountability mechanism policy will be critical to ensure effective implementation of the ESF. And we are beginning to start to taking a look at how the composition of the review panel of the board management committee, we're a member of it now, to ensure that as we look at the as we look at the review of that policy, we have also a strong ability to making a stronger accountability mechanism that is independent, that is accessible, as well as timely. I think timing is a real critical piece as we go forward, that it not drag out. And I think we're going to hear maybe from some of the panelists here around the issue, this particular issue. To achieve this, the review must be underpinned by strong public consultation. So please do be very active in the process of consultation as we go forward, and certainly looking for strong CSO input in this policy review as we go forward. So let me stop there. I really look forward to hearing from the panelists on their experiences with ADB projects, how they've done in the previous, based on the 2009 policy, and how we can be using that experience to improve the safeguards going forward. So let me stop there and allow other panelists to continue here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your opening words. Moving over to Indira for the discussion about Tanam. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
So there's a funny story. I was forgotten to be picked up yesterday by one of my colleagues to the annual meeting. So now the other colleague kind of forgot that I was going to speak. I don't know what's happening, to be honest. All right, jokes aside. For us, this is, thank you, Ambassador Wong. I think you touched upon major key issues, disclosure of FIs, for example. It's a tricky thing, nobody wants to talk about it. But we're really glad as civil society because we resonate with you on these issues as well. Another good thing is with this discussion, you have the highest level of ADB governance, recognizing key issues in the safeguards, and you have us as stakeholders who are at the entire impact level of the project resonating on the key issues. For those who are in the safeguards team of the ADB, this must be very interesting for you because from the top all the way down to the grassroots bottom, if we're talking about the same things of concern, then that means there must be some semblance of truth about what we're saying and needs your urgent attention. NGO Forum on ADB seems to have a sense of entitlement with the safeguards policy statement. We might sound a little bit on the nose for this, we apologize, but there's a reason for this. We feel that the safeguards policy statement of 2009 is as much the Asian Development Bank's as it is our own. We've gone through the 2006, 2007, 2008 consultation process to get those binding requirements on involuntary settlement, on the environment, on indigenous peoples, and we kept on holding you accountable to what we had achieved together. Today, with the ESF double paper, we are afraid that we're losing some of those things that we gained together in the need for speed and flexibility of lending. So as I don't want to repeat myself from the morning, but we do not want to lose the binding requirements which protect the people and the planet from ADB operations to be compromised in the name of flexibility. So some of the key issues to touch upon, and I don't want to throw the entire shopping list, we'll give it to you in writing. The first is in the vision piece of the double paper. The entire agenda of doing no harm to ADB project operations is not quite there. It doesn't clearly read out that this is the purpose of the document. And we urge the ADB to consider that. Secondly, once again, when you try to implement the policy, if you're going to use flexible words such as timely, or you're going to use other systems and say materially consistent with ADB standards, there's flexibility there. between what is materially consistent and what is absolutely equivalent. And there's a gap there. Other issues where applicable. Where applicable is quite random and arbitrary. When will the ADB standard be applied? If you leave that decision upon completely on the borrower and it is not binding on them, then will they apply it at all, right? So avoiding these words and being absolutely clear on being time bound, on making sure that systems are assessed at the borrower level and seeing if they're equivalent to ADB standards and then using them. So that kind of finite grid is needed if it is going to be a policy which is binding. Now, one more thing which I didn't mention in the morning to the precedent session is this. If a borrower does not have an environmental social management system, should they be receiving financing from a bank which has been doing development work for 54 years? What is your modus operandi to give financing to a company or a borrower which doesn't have an environmental social management system? So these are very, very alarming things in the W paper, and I just want to bring back our main call here, which is on environmental and social risk assessment to be done prior to project financing approval. If the money is out of the door, we know who our governments are, we know which companies operate. Once they receive the funds, it will be very difficult for them to be chased down and make sure they implement the safeguards. Now, with all this flexibility in mind, it seems currently the W paper is safeguarding, but it's safeguarding bank officials who are not reading the risk reports in time. It's safeguarding the companies by giving them a lot of flexibility, but it wasn't the original point to safeguard the communities and the environment. I'll stop here, actually, and my shopping list will be coming to you May 6th as promised. But before I end, I must say, with the Office of the Safeguards, we've gone through you with this for 2 years. It probably was one of the most inclusive consultation processes that we have seen. You've even gone to the field and seen the projects yourselves. So in terms of the consultation process, we are not complaining. But where we are complaining is, after all that we've said for 2 years, what went into the document? You have every right to not include what we said, that's fine. But why did you leave it out? You have to explain that to us as well. So I'll stop there and end it there.
Thank you. And now we really will move over to Indira for the next explanation of major concerns currently about the Tanahu hydropower project, which I know many of you have heard, but this is really updated and clear issues that are coming from the grounds that are important to be brought forward today. Over to you, Indira.
Jorle, thank you. Namaste to all. Just first, I want to show the 1 second video. Please take this in. Anune Komisian, Arogi San Muki Parle,
घाटवाली कानुन चेलीबेटी छान्ने कानुन ससुराली छान्ने कानुन कुटुम्बको छान्ने आशा कानुन कानुन लाडीको बढ्दै लाभ पाउन छान्ने पाउने
कानुन कुन प्रजातिका सबै राष्ट्रियले मण्डली प्रजातिका कानुन मगरको राष्ट्रियले अनि भागी पनि प्रजातिका कानुन राष्ट्रियले
कानुन सम्बन्ध एक चित्त माया के पाउने
कानुन जम्मू कुण्डलो वन जुडिन्छ ठाउँ गाहन बाहिर जुट्ने
कानुनमा पढ्नेवासी मगरको हातमा ढाक्ने कि मगरको सिमी दास संस्कार जाने ठाउँ खेला छन् बन्न कानुन ढाक भाग्ने
कानुन खाएदेखि पढ्नेदेखि राज्य मध्ये शासन सुनेर दुरा पैसा आजन mana jadi kan sini dah bukan saya ya kan kan saya dunia nak apa sih saya saya mau nanti jatuh jadi sekolah kita anti sangat dari bapa bapa orang lebih sangat jauh yang kiri mereka dan kafir eksploitasi.
Get the PowerPoint up, please.
yeah, but yeah,
Great, thank you.
please enter slide. Yeah, another slide. Next, please. Yeah, it is our Tanaho hydropower project area. This construction area is our indigenous community in Tanaho that is going to constructing in from the hydropower Tanaho. Please next slide. Yeah. Another that second river work is, but it is next river per work the concrete work it outlaid the portal of DTI in the constructing area. Yeah, it is the going 50% constructing now. Status of the pen is the 5 installation in the pen is the term and February 2022. Then installation, yeah. ADB, EIB, and JICA are major investor, while Nepal Electricity Authority is also investing in the $505 million large-scale hydropower built in Seki River of Tanahu. In Nepal, have 6,000 rivers in Nepal, but one Seki River is the biggest, another one. So the project construction will not only involve the loss of residential and protected land, 547 affected household and productive land. So accounting for 74% in indigenous peoples, mothers, and 3% Dalit and constructing, but also part of the social identity and cultural heritage of indigenous people, with destruction of 9 cremation sites, loss of collective lands, and disseminated area. So indigenous people's grievances It is another lawyer city started now. Then please, the affected community, the grievances, the complaints express dissatisfaction with the expert decision for the government, where there was lack of meaningful consultation, where there are the FP policy regarding lands and territory cultural heritage, and so they are the going complaint with the complaint mechanism system. Then complaints have forwarded their grievances to various departments with the ADB, meaning management, including the ED, USED, and South Asian Region Department, many other sectors of ADB, Safeguard Division, and Energy Sector Group, as well as the Nepal government too. Despite our constant effort in seeking a peaceful resolution for problem solving has been achieved. Problem solving, no concrete positive outcome has been achieved. So therefore, due to lingering issue and our only remaining recourse appears to be seeking justice through our other system, that we are now, our community is dilemma. How many times we are waiting for the justice, problem solving process, or Supreme Court Nepal. It is another longer process. So we are going to seeking many of the problems. We have ADB safeguard policy and its implementation, but the principal 8 indigenous safeguard policy of ADB ensures preparing action plan for legal recognition of customary rights to land and territory and ancestral domain when the project involved, activate that are the contingent and establishing legally recognized right to lands and territory that indigenous people have traditionally owned, customary use and occupy, or involuntary acquisition of such lands. The principle was highly ignored by the promoter, TSP, in addressing the complaints of the complainant. The compensation disaggregated safeguard guideline to which the safeguard policy make ADB should be the held accountable. This failure to address to the principle has had significant impact on the cultural, social, environmental, and economic aspects.
If you're calling this back up, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. We have the other policy too, but not good implement. So longer process. It is how our community-wide and how to advise to the community. It is a big problem. I want to request to all, it is going, if you have good accountable for the fast-track system, so our community will raise out your principle. Thank you.
This is really key, important. So moving on to David from Solidarity Forum 1.
Thank you, Tanya. Hi everyone, thank you for this opportunity. So I will share about the geothermal project in Indonesia, particularly how the ESF can be from our witness, based on this project. So actually this morning, the presentation already showed many things of the geothermal project, the situation. So I'm not, sorry. when we need gender equality and protect women's rights or not. Yeah. So, okay. So what we are calling the geothermal is the false solution. Yeah. So many problems, and we can see the geothermal project will become the disaster for the people. So it's not only for the planet, but also for the people. So in the all aspect, yeah, environmental, social, and culture, economy, and also gender have the impact because of the geothermal project. So this is some problems of the geothermal, and you can see in the gender aspect there is more impact. Yeah, there is more the effect because of the geothermal project. So we can see when the destroying water source, of course, this can be impact for the women's burden, yeah, and also the what is the reproductive health of the women because the biology of the women is different, and the problems, yeah. It's not only when the geothermal already existing, but the problem happened since since preparation. So we know that many mega projects of the geothermal, there is no clear information that the women get it, yeah, and a meaningful consultation. That's a fundamental problem. Yeah, we know there is no clear information. Even the language is not with the local language. So many women, they cannot get the more clearly information about the project. And the other issue, loss of the women indigenous knowledge, increasing domestic violence, including the sexual harassment, security threat. Yeah, we can see in the preparation process. There is have the security threatened, by the police or by the government. And the other issue, we see in the we know many what is the project make it a conflict in the community, even the horizontal or vertical. And the conflict has the different impact for the women, and we see that can make the traumatic and the mental health disorder issue. So we can see that the situation, can be multiple effect for the women because of the gender rules, gender issue, and also the increase of healthcare rate. And back again. So I share the two cases. That the first is funded by the ADB, and the other is not by ADB, but this can be reflect for us, how the ADB can be built, therefore the ESF more gender consideration and protection for the women's rights. So this is the form Sakula Geothermal Power Plant that is funded by ADB around 2013. And the capacity is 320 megawatt in North Sumatra, and now already operate. But what happened? This is some information in the media. When this operated, already have the problem right now. It's like the poisonous gas explosion. At least 2 cases that's making the public media also, and people die, agricultural damage in the village around project, and this can make the women and children are not safe because in other problems also with the geothermal, when the gas explosion, let's make the women's sick and get not the women, also the children. And this is regarding the geothermal in Lumbu Pojok Leok in East Nusa Tenggara. So Titi also shared this morning, but this is some information that how the women have their relationship with the natural, with the land. So this is some they thought, if the land is hard, the heart of us mother also hard. So there's some word of this. So we can see and why they are fighting for their land, for their livelihood, for their environment on that. So this is the indigenous local language, Tanah Hidup Indidame. Land is our mother. So we can see why the women fighting for the land. So this is the picture, when they are protest and fighting, for their land, for their life also. And you can see this, the car, the police car, there. So why, and the other. So this is some problems. This is also in the forest protection. Sorry. So this is some picture when they are protests. So they get the harassment, they get the violence. From the military, from the police. You can saw this, some picture, and how the women they are fighting. So this is a link if you want to see how brutally oppressed by the military. So this is what the impact, if the state repression, So the question, if the ADB ESF not ensure the safety and protection as well the restoration of the women's life, how the ADB can commit for the gender equality. So if the problem in the ESF, the ESF is dilution of the SPS 1995 and decrease of work for the gender consideration, for the protection of the women's rights, and there is no strong word and sentence. There is no sentence for the gender impact assessment as requirement. There is no sentence about that. Even in this ESF, there is no word about the female-headed household. But in the SPS, they have a word about that. So we can imagine, where if the ESF not ensure the gender impact analysis as a requirement, so how the ADB talking about the gender equality, gender consideration? So with that our point to how the ESF must be strong and commit to gender equality.
Thanks, Dewi. So now you've heard a bit about the overview of the architecture, our major concerns, and why. First, we're going to prioritize questions from the floor, and then we'll move on to the pigeonhole next for the next round. So first up, maybe I can ask for Manana, and then Boba, and then Nora.
Thank you, and really thank you for this very inclusive process. We never witnessed that big, I would say, and time, very long process with any ADB, and it was really good. We we also enjoy the analysis you have prepared and how you have been comparing your standards with the other banks. However, we have been expected maybe more, and we want to expect more to see you as one of the most advanced bank in terms of the safeguards. So from that point of view, it's really important that all the policy is being drafted around do not harm perspective, both in case of the biodiversity and environmental impacts, labor impacts, but also from the human rights perspective, because what we have here about the gender, it's applies on the number of the other issues. We recognize this contextual risk assessment, which is provided in the non-binary part of mainly of the policy. This is the step forward, but this contextual risk assessment should be operationalized, and this operationalized should be happened based on the UN High Commission for Human Rights benchmarking study on the development finance institutions, which comes last year, and it provides all the tools that development banks need. So without these tools, this operation is it couldn't happen. Sorry, I'm getting really tired with all things, not about with you, but all my government things and forgetting English. So from that perspective, for example, when we speak, this is very good that you have, for example, stakeholder engagement. We appreciated that. But without good human rights assessment and due diligence, it could be not possible to find out the most vulnerable or marginalized groups. And the practice, unfortunately, would be the same, because it was the practice to have the good stakeholder engagement, and then not only marginalized and the vulnerable groups have been held, I'm finishing, held out of the consultations, but even the experts who bank first of all supposed to go. So thanks a lot. We will also provide your comments soon, but it was really nice to work all this 3 years with you. Thank you.
And now we're going to you, but I think especially if remarks can be kept really short. We are on a time frame, unfortunately, so we are trying to wrap up close to 6 p.m. So thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Gofar from Bali, the Indonesian Forum for Environment. Thanks for the story. I think it's a proof that with the existing safeguard, there is a lot of the environmental problem, human rights violations, and the impact directly to the frontline and indigenous people communities. And now the global declare the 3 planetary crises: pollution, loss of biodiversity, and climate crisis. So, what's the commitment of the ADB with the new safeguard? And they will answer the triple planetary crisis and lots of problem with the women issue, gender issue, indigenous people, and frontline communities. Is it the safeguard strong enough to dealing with this problem? I think it's not only the requirement, but also the evaluation, and ADB must be strong enough to, if the project will be impacted to the communities, will harm to the environment, and will worsening the climate crisis, we need to stop the project. I think we need a strong commitment not only on the text but also on the implementation, and ADB must be evaluate the previous project with some story and fact in the grassroots communities. Thank you.
Thank you. And now over to Nora for a question as well.
Thank you very much also for the process. I also think it's a really good, inclusive process. But I want to come back to the resettlement question. Indira raised that, and we spoke about that also in Frankfurt, because this is really tackling so many different safeguards from 1 to 5 to 7 to 10. Our research has shown that nearly half of the projects only between 2015 and 2020 triggered resettlement, which sums up to 1 million people. So we think that all projects which involve resettlement should be categorized as category A. And also projects which go above 5,000 people resettled should be not approved at all. And the last thing, we talked about that also, the cumulative effects of projects need to be taken into account, additional to resettlement. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll open it up for responses. Either Wong or Mr. Wong can give any responses, or anyone from the floor who's here from the ADB.
Nobody was going to respond. I guess I could try. I mean, I think So thank you for bringing up these issues. I think these are experiences that we need to take into consideration as we look at the new ESF. I would say that what's good about the new ESF, at least the draft we've seen, is really a risk-based approach, and it's really very much an integrated process. Key into this is really the consultation and really looking at through the consultation process, looking at the risk up front and understanding what those risks are, and in identifying those risks through the process. And when we do identify the risks, we have to come up with mitigation plans to mitigate those risks, right? The plans are to mitigate them, and then to monitor and make sure that these are followed through. It is a new way of looking at it, rather than these checklists and the three, indigenous, resettlement, and ESG. It's a new way of doing this ESF. I would say that we think it could be more comprehensive and inclusive of all the risks that the project can have on a community, and so rather than doing this very rote checklist process. So I think that it should help alleviate some of these things. More importantly, really, is the accountability mechanism, whether it's through the problem-solving aspect or the compliance aspect of it. So it will take the new process to actually start to go through this, giving sort of the experiences that have been highlighted here. I know we've had some conversations about the Tanam Dam project, the hydropower project, the specifics, but I hear that there's some new movement by the THL to come up with some action plan. So we'll see how that's going to come to terms. But this is through the old complaint. Yeah, right. So we feel, like I said in my opening, we feel that this new ESF does have some improvements. We're looking forward to those. There are still some challenges around it that we want to, like the disclosure. Ryan, you've brought that up in terms of disclosure and the FI, financial intermediaries. So we hear these challenges, and they will still continue to make sure that we tighten those provisions to make sure we don't provide additional challenges going forward. But I would say we're on a good path. We will continue to do that, and at least at the W paper stage. We do still have some improvements that we're still looking for. So, but continue to. I would like to make sure that we do still hear from the CSOs as well as those that are affected parties to make sure that we.
I think Lucy wants to answer.
Yeah, did you
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Give it space. Yes, thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. Many of you do know me. My name is Bruce Dunn, Director handling the policy update. I'm here with our head of the Office of Safeguards, Liam Chenjung, and a number of other colleagues. I was thinking through my mind how to respond on many issues, and I know time is not here. So I'll just make a couple of general points and then 3 specific ones quickly while I've got time. First, generally, we really appreciate your engagement, and you've given us a lot of valuable time, and we have been listening, and we're continuing to listen today. They're actually, through the consultation process, we've actually been making quite a number of changes to the existing draft, which we'll bring out in July. And the points that you're raising this week to us will also continue to influence that. So, I hope we will continue to work through that process. Second, on the implementation issues, I don't want to step away from the fact that this is challenging, and when you're raising these project issues, it always concerns us as an institution and also personally. So, I commit, we will continue to follow up with you. Tananu Hydropower project, for example, has been very challenging, and we are continuing to work with the government to try and resolve those issues in our action plans that are being put in place. But, we have to continue to work with the community. And then 3, just quite specific things of the many points that were raised so far. Firstly, stakeholder engagement is very much key, and we have heard a lot of concerns about safe space for civil society and affected people. For those of you that have been looking at the policy, you will see that institutionally we've made a commitment around no tolerance for reprisals, and in the stakeholder engagement standard, we've also made that clear for our borrowers and clients that we expect that to be met. Now, we don't want to just have that on paper, we've obviously got to implement that. But that is something we've pushed in this new policy that wasn't there before, and I think that's very important. Second, I wanted to highlight kind of the importance of gender equality. That is actually one of the really key priorities for ADB as an institution, and we have targets around that. It certainly has not been our intention to weaken the standard. In fact, the way we see it, we've got an approach on disadvantaged and vulnerable people, which has included also looking at gender equality. Now, that is referenced about 42 times across the policy, which sort of covers from screening and identification of women, of girls, of other disadvantaged and vulnerable groups, ensuring we've got inclusive consultation, doing impact assessment, addressing through avoidance and mitigation measures. It's there, it's mainstream. But maybe what we haven't done is consolidate some of that into the policy clearly, and we are looking to do that. So well taken on those points. We'll strengthen that further. And I think moving forward, there's a number of elements. Ryan's mentioned about ensuring that we've got good readiness, and we agree. The risk-based approach that we're putting forward with this policy, we do want to make sure that we're looking at risk. We're not saying risk-based approach in terms of, okay, let's streamline everything and look at it later. No. What we need to ensure is through adequately assessing the risks by doing contextual analysis that we focus on addressing those risks. And that's where we actually want to shift our resources. We do not want to approve projects that have not got environmental and social impact assessment. That wouldn't set us up for implementation and would lead to more impacts. There maybe are some projects where very low risk we can streamline. Maybe there are some continuing assessments that need to be done after board approval of, part of detailed design that can't be done up front. But we need to ensure good readiness. And I think that's something that Nyanshan pushes us all the time, and we're going to be working on things like readiness filters. So I just highlight those 3 issues. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, both Edie Wong and Bruce, for those inputs. Just to really reiterate, I think what's coming out of the panelists as well as the questions is the real issue that it is the principle of do no harm that must be that we must see coming clearly in the new ESF, and that there needs to be this precautionary approach that is underpinned by international human rights and environmental standards. So now with that, I'll move over to Jitan from the Center for Research and Advocacy in Manipur to speak about the concerns that he's been monitoring and seeing on the ground. Over to you, Jitan.
Right. Thank you very much. Just convey my regards to my co-panelists and also to all the participants here. So I will briefly talk about the Imphal Town Ring Road project. I do have a brief PowerPoint presentation with technical things in the talk. I will share on how the ongoing push for the Imphal Town Ring Road project. This is one of the infrastructure road project still pursued by the ADB from 2014 onwards. Actually, it's quite some time. But then, sorry. Okay. Okay, sorry. All right. So this has been part of the ADB South Asia Economic Cooperation infrastructure project, and then of course there are a couple of agreements all around. So there are other ADB funded projects that include the Kamsutu Tamilong Road project, and Imphal to Mori Road project, and Tupul Kasong Plain. So these are all ADB funded projects, which actually will connect the proposed ongoing push for this Imphal Town Ring Road project. And then of course this is the map, proposed map. It's been revised again and again, of course, because of the multiple impact on the multiple layers of multiple communities. And you can see one of the concern, multiple concern, but one of the concern you can see the road alignment. Also there are zigzag in so many areas now, so it depends on which area it falls. So there are a lot of controversies around where it goes along, and then okay, so just a little bit of on the status of the project. It's been pursued from 2014 onwards, and then of course there were already a series of eviction notice issued already. And the project was again reintroduced in 2020-21 when at the height of COVID-19 times, compelling a lot of the affected communities to protest during the COVID time. So there's a lot of concern around that. And of course, some of the affected communities, they already filed a complaint with the Manipur High Court. And of course, there are interim orders. And then, in several of them, they already filed a complaint with the OSPF, the accountability mechanism in 2022, and also last year, 2023. And of course, there's for one of the community, the local grievance mechanism was formed, the redressal mechanism was formed. And now there's an ongoing push for by the authorities to commence the project construction. Sorry, I'm so sorry for this. Okay, so this is one of the area that will be affected by the ring road project. So you will see a 30-meter wide road project that passes through this area. This is called the Tharani area. So there will be massive, not just massive displacement of community. And this is also what people are complaining that this actually passed through some of the most congested area in Imphal town. So which means it will, the Manipur government assembly is also quite close by. So there are a lot of concern that this is, one of the questions is the irrationality and lack of feasibility of the project. So because if you come up with a road project, you also need to think about 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, 30 years down the line. So this is already congested, and when you pursue this project in a congested area, so then in very soon you need another road. You need to expand the road again. So that's also a big concern with this particular project. And then of course there are other, not just the land or the residence area, but also livelihood source and water bodies that will be affected. So I would highlight some of the other challenges. When it comes to the, we feel that there are clear violations of or the non-application of ADB safeguard policy 2009, the lack of information disclosure, and I would say that the lack of the inadequate appraisal of the impacts, social impact, environmental, cultural. And then one concern is the misinformation, misinformation by the project authorities. I think there's been a lot of concern because it led to false promise and also, some point of time division within the community. And then of course the lack of consultation and consent of the affected communities, meaningful consultation. the concern is also the failure to consider the alternatives and the rights concern suggested by the communities affected. So especially the alternative, because we see the routing through very congested area, and people are seeking alternatives, alternatives where it will minimize the impact on the people and the environment. And I think that is one of the continuing contestation. And then of course the issue around eviction notice. Eviction notice was already issued, even before the application of safeguard. And now our concern is also the issue around the reprisal, because some of us were able to, lobby with ADB to respect community rights, and also to seek an alternative, and also to apply the safeguard policy. But then, just recently, there are cases where the community leaders were summoned by the armed groups and then threatened and say, why are you opposing the project? All sort of things. So we feel that there has to be a clear democratic process. There should be a full respect of the application of the safeguard policy. And one thing that I find in our case is we feel that the monitoring of the application of safeguard, I think this is completely lacking in our case. Who is monitoring? And I think that's an area we feel that needs to be improved substantially, because when we file a complaint, there should be a clear process of monitoring the application of safeguard policies. And I think this is something especially at the community level. And in our case, again, this is Manipur, where I come from, is still a conflict-affected area. I think you must have heard of multiple layers of conflict, armed conflict, and then, ethnic conflict, and multiple layers of conflict. So in a very fragile and contested area, pursuing this kind of mega large-scale project, it also breeds a lot of corruption and, manipulation, and, there are different aspects, other dimensions of the impact on the people. So I think that is one area that has to be considered. So these are some of the community who protest the impact on the land. This is one of the indigenous group who seek consent, they will affect the forest land. This is the protest by people from Kurai area and also from Natabal area. These are two affected areas. And then of course there are other people also in the public hearing on the social impact assessment. So after filing complaint, of course, the good thing is at least there was a couple of public hearings held to prepare the social impact assessment. So I think that's a good thing. So my final recommendation would be we feel that the project financing should be reviewed. We feel that at least it should be put on the project the assisted project financing till the concern raised by the affected communities are fully addressed now. And this is from any kind of forced eviction of affected groups, define alternatives to the affected community, and full-scale application of ADB safeguard policy, and of course to ensure the full protection of the affected communities and the community leaders from all kinds of reprisal. So which means ADB can substantially improve. We feel that ADB should improve strongly especially on the protection of the community, to stop all forms of reprisal, and finally to come up with a strong monitoring of the safeguard policy implementation at the community level. With this, thanks once again. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jitan. Clearly, this brings up issues around reprisals as well as human rights and the actual monitoring and implementation of safeguards in a situation where there is conflict and incredibly fragile areas. Okay, so now over to our last speaker, which is Hassan Mehdi from Clean, and he will speak to us. It links in very much as an overarching concern around the range of implications that ADB projects have had that he's been monitoring on the ground. Over to you.
Thank you, Tanya. Dear colleagues and audience, all guests. I have several photos, so if it doesn't work, you don't need to view it. You will see the photos, beautiful photos. So, who are the target? So, first one, this is, almost famous among the ADB people that KJDRP, Kurnajeswar Drainage Rehabilitation Project, which was taken in 1994. At that time, the people started protesting the project because it ignored the local ecology, highly sedimentation and the river dynamics. So it created, from the very day on, it created huge waterlogging, and it's still going on after 30 years of the project. It was taken in 1994, and now it is 2024. displaced from their own house for 6 months at least and take shelter on the highways every 6 months. And that is happening there every year. So that's it. So here, my point is whether ADB safeguard policies will take the responsibilities of long-term impact of its projects, or it will leave behind all of the people after just completion of the project. And then 2 years you have the time to raise complaint. But after that, what will happen? If I feel the effect after, like whether domino effect or butterfly effect or snowball effect, if I feel after 20 years, what will happen? Will ADB take the responsibility? That's the question, and you should consider that. Let's go to second. This man's name is Alfred Soren. He was shot and killed in 2000 when they were organizing a protest against commercial plantation in a natural forest where this indigenous people called Santao was living and still living. So they are living there for hundreds of years, and ADB took up 2 projects there. One is the called sub-district level nursery development project, another is called social forestry project in the Madhupur area. So under that project, several commercial plantation companies got contract to plant commercially viable plants in the natural forest. They protested and they didn't want to allow them, so forest department made this wall. You can see wall. Inside the wall, they cordoned the indigenous people, and outside the wall, they leased out the forest land to the commercial, and they started forest. So he is not survived by your safeguard policy. And then, when he was killed, there was, of course, there was police case, etc., etc. And you left these communities to the Bangladesh court, and you are safeguarded by the immunity which is given by the Bangladesh government and the parliament. So who is safeguarded here? Just one safeguarded person. It is the logging happening there. So the commercial plantation. So one is the Asian Development Bank is safeguarded, another is the private commercial plantation company is safeguarded, not the communities. Let's think about that how the communities will be affected with your project after approval and after, even after completion of the project. Because that will become a norm that this can be happening. And most of the time, under the TA, most of the time the government for like new regulation, new policy, so which becomes like very normal. The third one, the beautiful photo of the spotted deer in the Sundarbans mangrove forest, and Asian Development Bank took a project in 1999 in the name of protecting the forest by restricting the forest people from the access to the forest. So what happened? According to the, this is the situation now. So according to the forest department data, the illegal logging and legal and illegal logging increased after the project. So that's how they are applying the wood or timber from the forest to that. So even if you think this in commercial field, none of your safeguard policy will work. If you don't have a strict rule, strict provision, strict option there. Fourth one, this is a project taken in 2005, the Agricultural Development Project, and ADB was promoting high yielding varieties and high valued crops, SBC and SYV. You know, SYV and SBC both needs use a lot of pesticides and chemical fertilizers. The pesticide kills the aquatic frogs and the freshwater fishes. And then new insects come, insects breeding, breeds more because there is no frog, there is no bird, there is no freshwater fish who can eat them up. So, and then, the pesticide use increased. And that is called domino effect. That is called butterfly effect. Now there is no fish. Now there is no, at least 37 types of different freshwater fishes has extinct, and 5 is totally not found in Bangladesh now. So that happened as a result of these problems. Now, how we are assessing that? How we are going to respond to that problem? How we are taking the responsibility of the whole thing together? That's the question from our side. So this is the people who organized a protest in the name of Safeguard Cemetery, environmental land and livelihoods in the cemetery here, in the area. So then the demand from the governments. Rewrite the safeguard policy, include long-term impacts in the projects in the safeguard policy, includes spillover impacts of the projects in the safeguard policy, and prioritize people and planet over the profit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mehdi. So I think just actually on Pigeonhole, I'm just going to read out one question before we move to the closing remarks by Ambassador Wong, because one of them is actually directed to you specifically, so I'll read this out. It says that the ESF draft relegates mention of LGBTQI+ to the definition of marginalized and vulnerable groups. How does the U.S. and other panelists view this and the risk that LGBTQI+ will be treated as optional? There are a couple of other questions here around the mitigation hierarchy and the concerns around whether human rights will be an exception to clients, as well as and then the last one, which we can discuss afterwards, is what can and will the ADB do to exercise its leverage over clients to ensure compliance and implementation even before harm occurs. So now I'll give the floor over to the closing, or to some reflections and reactions from Ambassador Wong, because given there's some time constraints we have. But after that, we can keep, there'll be some time afterwards for further question and answer from the audience.
Thank you. So maybe specifically answering the questions on LGBTQ, and then I'll give my reflections. This is actually an issue that I've been very personally involved in. I have to say that it's been a hard road to get to where we are, and I think to make sure that to ensure all vulnerable groups, not only LGBTQ but certainly LGBTQ communities, are identified in the policy. It's in the definition of all vulnerable groups. That's disabled, religious minority, age, as well as SOGI. That's really already in at least at the current draft. So we feel that because it is currently in the policy, it gives us a hook to ensure that the staff guidance and all of the things that are going to come along will have a place for that inclusion. So it is, as Bruce has mentioned, in terms of the risk-based approach, really to, in a particular project, to identify the risks to LGBTQ communities, to be able to, if there are risks to a project in that affects that community, then to come up with a plan to mitigate those risks and to make sure that we monitor those risks are mitigated going along. So that's the intent, and that is really already currently in the policy. So we're hoping to see that move forward. And finally, by the way, there is no what we call carve-outs. You know, in other in the other safeguards policy, like in the ADB, for example, the SOGI and LGBTQ is clearly in the gender section of the safeguards. But they have a carve-out for countries that have discrimination, criminalization laws for LGBTQ. We don't have that. So there's no carve-out, and it's across all the countries. And in this region, there are 17 countries that have criminal laws, and so we don't want to carve out any countries that have those criminal laws. So we want to apply this across the region, right? And here in this country, for example, there is already a draft law against LGBTQ. So that is very clear from our part. So let me sort of give you a few reflections. This is not my first time at the ADB board. I was here at the ADB 1999 to 2002. In those days, safeguards, the safeguards policy was very different, and thanks to the U.S. Pushing for even the current one, we did make some progress, but certainly it is not what I saw when I was on the board the last time around. And I was lamenting to Ryan earlier that I was there at the board during the complaint, the very famous Sabah Khan case, the compliance case that came across the board because we did not do the EIA properly. Right, there was 2 sewage treatment plants on the Chaparral River, and it went to 1, but we didn't do an update of the EIA at the time. So we are at a very different place today. So I kudos to ADB to have come this far, but we're not there yet, right? So the new safeguards hopefully will get us to a better place in terms of more inclusive, risk-based approach. Somebody raised this about how much consultation has gone into this. So Yantian and Bruce, kudos to you guys in terms of what you've done, bringing the CSO consultations along as you go into the regions, to the countries, to provide those kind of inputs into the current policy. Like I said, it's gotten a lot further than we started, where we started, but certainly a few more to go. And I'm glad to hear and mention that we are going to be taking even more of these inputs further to better improve. Ultimately, I have to say, I've been to, since I've come on to the board this time around, I've been to several countries now, and surprisingly for me, I've been to, I think the last one I went to was Sri Lanka, before that India, and Nepal. We were there as well. I talked to the executing agencies when we have meetings. They have told me that but for the ADB safeguards, they would not have included some of these mitigation measures, like gender, for example. And so they were actually appreciative of the ADB safeguards that had, brought them to this place and making sure that the project is more sustainable. Ultimately, that's the case. If you're not consulting and providing the inputs in terms of making sure mitigating the safeguard, the risks to the communities, it's not going to be sustainable. And so that's the good part of what I heard in many of the places that I've been to. So I think we have come a long ways. And then finally, I have to say also what I saw in these countries that I've been to. But the last one I was in, it was in PNG. The importance of what we're doing, in terms of development in these countries have really come home to me. With climate change being such an impact on communities now, throughout the region that we face. Where there's cloths, I learned hiking into Malachi River, and the impacts that the climate change is now having on communities. And what we need to be doing is to ensure that the projects that we do with the governments and the communities are sustainable, inclusive. And so the new safeguards should take us in that direction. So thank you for giving us the inputs. We have a lot of lessons to learn from that, and to provide inputs into the new safeguards policy. So thank you.
We have a back-to-back meeting, so we have about 7 minutes left on this panel. We will, if people can extend, we can open it up maybe 5 to 10 minutes beyond the, if we're able to keep this room, but we have other questions. Meanwhile, if you need to head off, we'll let you go. Thank you. So first up, I saw TT's hand there, and Mayang. And Sukaral, and Radhika, and Vidya. I think that's it. Anyone else? Going once? Going twice.
Hi, I'm Sundara from ASEAN, Indonesia. So, during the conversation, it seems that we agree that one of the key issues is actually the importance of consultation. But my question is, what is actually the purpose of the consultation? If in the consultation, first we know based on our experience, many times consultation doesn't work. It doesn't meet all the requirements of free, prior, and informed consent. It's fake. But what is actually the purpose of consultation? So in many reports they say we have done consultation and the project can pursue. So we need to be careful that consultation is discussion about the projects. And it could come out that people say no, because based on the information, based on our experience, we see problems and we don't want to have that problem. So I don't see that the safeguard accommodate. If the people say no to a project, then the project won't pursue. The experience until now, the consultation is a tool to push through the projects, even the people say no.
This question is addressed to Mr. Bloom. Yeah, I've been saying this on many occasions, but and we'll reiterate that we have noticed glaring omissions of